I just kind of want to do a comprehensive overview of kind of the logistics of traveling, what to expect, what to think about when you're packing, safety issues, that kind of stuff. So I think all of you have turned in all of your application materials to me. Is that correct? Yep. I think I was only missing one, and I talked to her. So good job on that. Now I'll grab a list of whoever is here from Katie. So I'll check off the pre-departure orientation attendance for all of you. So that item will be the last remaining item in your portal. This stuff is all not applicable, but is everybody who needs to be enrolled in credit for this class enrolled properly? Okay, good. Good to know. So the first thing that I kind of wanted to start out with is talking about culture a little bit. And this is something that often is overlooked in terms of having like an actual in-depth discussion about what it means to be going into a different culture, because it will frame a lot of what you are seeing, what you're experiencing, what you're feeling when you travel abroad. Now, we think that like London, for instance, is not that different probably from the US, but Rich may attest, and I think he's told some anecdotes about how different it is culturally from Colorado Springs and from the US. So what is culture? It's basically our learned and shared knowledge that we use to generate behavior and interpret our experience of the world. So culture is emanated through TV, it's through how we speak, through our family, everything around us emanates culture and has influenced how we think and how we view the world. So I kind of want to do a couple exercises about what you guys know about your own culture and what you know about culture in London. So how would you describe people from the U.S. thinking from like an American perspective? How would you describe yourself as an American?
iPhone.
That's a good one.
Entitled.
Okay. And there's no wrong answer. It's whatever you think. I just kind of want to hear what everybody, and I want you all to hear what everybody else thinks. So we
Probably
have
a little nervous right now. I think
Okay.
Americans are a little nervous about especially international stuff.
Great.
I think Erica needs on that one.
What else? Come on, everybody.
We're very on the go. We're always, we don't take time to smell the roses.
So we're always on the go. We're always attached to our phones. We may seem a little entitled. Okay. I think that's all we're gonna get. So how would you?
And everybody will spot you as Americans immediately. I mean, they won't have any trouble. We dress a little different. You know, people will know you're Americans. Sometimes they think you're Canadians. Most of the time they'll spot immediately that you're an American.
Okay, so how would you all describe, just from what you know currently about the UK and London, how would you describe the culture there and the people there? And not necessarily just the people, but just like the culture in general. It could be the food, it could be media, anything.
For me, London is like the Royals. That's what I think of.
Isn't that a TV show?
I don't know.
It is.
Is that, I don't watch TV. But that's what I think about. Royal folk.
Royal, proper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Classier than us.
Classic. Didn't we fight a revolutionary war to combat that? What else? Okay, can everybody give me one answer? That's what I'm gonna do. So you didn't give one yet.
Yeah.
Not for the London.
Okay.
So some of their words that we use are different for them, like their meanings. Like, don't ask for a napkin.
Oh.
Ask for a napkin. Don't think it's a.
Sanitary thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Glad to know, glad to know.
You know, the boot is the trunk, a flat is an apartment, a solicitor is an attorney.
So that's a good one to know, especially for your group. You're gonna be hearing a lot about solicitors.
Huh,
Solicitors and barristers, the word lawyer almost never is said.
okay.
Barristers talk in court, solicitors are the transaction attorneys.
There you go.
All sorts of stuff like that.
We
Okay.
have the lift. I know the lift is the elevator, so that'll be one. Water closet. Does anybody know that one?
Yeah,
That's bathroom.
that's the bathroom.
Yeah.
Water closet.
And they'll have the doors marked WC,
WC. Yeah.
not restrooms.
That doesn't mean women's can? Got it, got it. All right, check.
All right. What else? What do we have down here?
I said something.
You did? Okay. She's like, I'm done.
Well, just like with what's been happening over there, they seem to have a very like close concept to like their communities. Like if somebody's affected by something, they seem to be more community oriented than us. It seems like.
Maybe because it's like a smaller country, so everybody's kind of like, they have a larger sense of national identity.
Wounded,
Mhm.
wounded,
Yeah,
yeah.
they've been hit hard the last couple months. What about Rebecca?
I'm looking forward to the Jack the Ripper, H.H. Holmes, whether it's really him or not.
Okay.
The people, I had friends that just went over to march during the bridge incident, and except for one day, like everybody said, the community came together just
Mhm.
one day. The only thing they weren't able to see was 10 Downing Street. They had
Okay.
it blocked off. Other than that, it was wide open.
And back in the corner.
Hiding from the camera. They have a totally different understanding of spatial awareness, very common in European countries, so they get closer to you, they'll sit next to you. It's very different from American culture.
That may be different in London though. They're very, I think that maybe in the tube, they like will cram together, but I think for the most part, especially in London, they're very, like, they may be a little bit more spatially aware than we may think. But I think in Europe in general, that's more of a thing, in general, yeah. So what about you?
They're like protective of their culture in general, like, cause I know that you can't actually like walk up Big Ben, like you can stand outside of it, but you can't tour it if you're not a citizen and you can't.
Interesting,
So-
okay.
Some of it.
Like you can't go in it, like a lot of, I was reading books about this, like that you couldn't go in it if you weren't a citizen.
What about you?
The only thing I could think of was like, they have different accents, like.
Yeah.
Cool Obviously, cool accents. Right?
So what about the food? Like, you think that's gonna be a little bit different?
It's gross.
Obviously, we've all heard Rich's horror story about blood sausage.
But even the fast food restaurants, you like go to Pizza Hut, they put corn on pizza.
Oh, I'll give it a shot.
It's more of like a meat and potatoes type of culture. It may seem a little bit heavier. Breakfasts are a totally different concept there.
Fried tomatoes, baked beans.
Ah, tomatoes, I like these.
Tasteless thing.
Well, if it's meat and potatoes, you're, well,
And
yes.
if they're really black sausages,
Don't eat
Blood
it.
I mean, like
Rich
this
was
color,
traumatized by that sausage.
that color there.
He carries it.
Well, don't
Carries
do
it.
that.
You're picky, buddy.
I am not a picky eater.
Come on.
I am not a picky eater. But there are limits.
Limits.
Walk
think
Just
that,
drown it in gravy.
Then they have brown sausage, you know, like made with pork and stuff.
He's aching for some bacon.
Yeah, bacon's good. It looks like Canadian bacon though. They don't have, it's not Oscar Mayer's smoked bacon. It looks like ham.
I think also something to note is our concepts of history are very different. So for example, for us, like the beginning of the United States was like 200 years ago, which is very recent for them. Where you see something here, it's 200 years old, we're like, oh my gosh, that's so old. But if something is 200 years old in London, it's like new. So our concepts of history are very different there too.
Like the tower, if you go there, that building's over 1,000 years old.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It was William the Conqueror's fort was built in 1066. So, I mean, but I'm just saying that we don't have anything that isn't Native American that's 1,000 years old.
Barely anything, yeah.
Nothing.
But something else to know is the politics overseas. I think a lot of people overseas are a lot more aware of American or politics in the U.S. than we are of politics happening overseas. Obviously, most of us have heard of the Brexit and that kind of stuff, and there's just an election in the UK, but it doesn't get as wide of coverage as U.S. politics gets overseas. So you may encounter people who may actually know more about American politics than we do, because it's so widely dispersed overseas, and especially wanting to engage in that political conversation is really common, especially right now with politics being such a hot button issue. So on that note, something that I'm telling all of my students before they go abroad is to be aware that people do want to engage in those conversations, and sometimes they want to be nice about it and just inquisitive, and sometimes they don't want to be so nice and they want to be more hostile, and it may seem like they're attacking you because of the political environment. Something that I should say is don't take it personally as much as they want to make it personal. Obviously we know that not one person, not us as individuals kind of made the political system as it is right now, but just be aware that people do want to engage in those conversations and are very upfront and forward about it. So if you're comfortable, definitely engage with them in those conversations. If you're not, then you may want to say politely that, hey, I don't want to talk about it right now, I just want to go see Big Ben. So anyway, to continue to finalize our culture discussion, so basically culture influences our expectations of what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate. Obviously, Rich's culture influenced him in the fact that blood sausage is clearly not an appropriate food.
Not appropriate.
Goose eggs too are off the menu.
So that's a cultural thing. He may say it's a human thing to not like blood sausage, but I would disagree and say it's a cultural thing. It's learned, so obviously people in the UK have learned to maybe stand blood sausage. And I'm just using blood sausage as our continuous example, so I hope you don't mind.
Only people that sleep during the day cannot stand sunlight. He was afraid of garlic.
Oh my gosh. It frames our experience, so your cultural background is going to frame how you experience London, and it provides us with patterns of behavior, thinking, feeling, and interacting. So shaking, how we greet people, like if we shake hands or if we kiss on the cheek, that kind of stuff. A little bit about stereotyping and bias. Why we did that culture discussion is because I wanted you to all be aware that everybody has stereotypes of another culture, and so your perceptions of UK culture may be based on these stereotypes. And I'm not using stereotypes in a negative term, I'm just saying that it's what we perceive their culture as. But it's important to recognize that we have these preconceived notions of culture overseas, especially in the UK, because we're so aware of it. It's hard to avoid initial judgments because we're framing our experience from an American perspective and judging it from that. And the important thing with that is to kind of come to a point of understanding where you understand that those people and that thing is coming from a different culture, coming from a different cultural background. So it's not necessarily bad, it's not necessarily better, but it's just different. And that's what they're used to. And whether you like it or not, you are going to be seen as a cultural ambassador. So they're going to label you as an American as much as you may not want that or may want that. And Rich already kind of pointed that out. They will say, oh, you're an American, and they may be like, oh, you're such a typical American. And you know, that may be their way of thinking of it, and you may not like that, but that's how they're going to perceive it, just as you are perceiving the people that you're interacting with as ambassadors of London culture. And then to kind of move into our last part, especially if this is your first time abroad or your first time in London, you may experience something called culture shock, and because you're going to be there for such a short amount of time, you may not go through the entire process of culture shock, but you may get through the first 2 steps. And the first step is basically the honeymoon phase, and it's where you're like, oh my gosh, we've been planning this for so long, and Katie probably will have this more than anybody. Oh my gosh, we've been planning this for so long. And it's finally happening, and we're here, and it's great, and it's London, and everybody has those great accents, and we can all laugh at Rich, you know, cringing at blood sausage. I really hope if you guys go out to eat, somebody
orders it.
somebody just orders
won't
him
happen.
blood sausage. And please take a picture for me.
Tell me how it tastes.
Surprise.
And
Have a kidney pie too while you're at it. I knew enough not to stay away from that, but.
oh, and
And
then,
it's not shaped like a kidney either, because it has kidneys in it.
Oh.
You want that sort of thing.
but the second phase of that, and you may go back and forth between these 2 phases too, is the crisis phase. It's called the crisis phase. I think it sounds a little dramatic, but it's basically where you're just like, oh my gosh, this is frustrating, everything's different, the food's horrible, it's cold, it's rainy, I'm super jet lagged, that kind of stuff. Where you kind of get like down in the dumps, and everything that kind of annoyed you at first is really like starting to get frustrating. And the important thing is to not kind of get stuck in that mindset, because it'll definitely ruin your time there. And it definitely is influenced a lot by jet lag. So you all are taking a red eye to London, correct?
When we get there, it's 8 o'clock in the morning,
Yes. Okay.
but we're leaving
So-
here at 11.
Try
Yeah.
to get some Z's on the plane as hard as it is. I can never sleep on planes, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But just be prepared to kind of go through those ups and downs emotionally, where you're like, this is great, oh, this is sucky, you know, like that kind of stuff. Some of you may kind of go through the adjustment phase where you're not seeing it as bad, it's just different, and you'll be like, all right, this is fine. And then the last stage is mastery, it's understanding and acceptance, but you know, those are for most of our like semester students who are going to be immersed in a culture for like maybe 3 or 4 months. If you want to do that, let me know, by the way. It will affect you, but probably not as severely as you would think, just because you're going to be there for such a short amount of time. Or it may affect you more severely because everything is kind of packed in to an intense week. But what I'm saying is just be prepared for those ups and downs. And don't let it ruin your time abroad. If it's something that's really getting to you, make sure you talk to Katie and Rich and, you know, talk to them about how you're feeling, and, you know, maybe you can come up with some coping mechanisms for the rest of the trip. But the important thing to understand is that they're here for you just as I'm here for you, and we'll be your resources abroad. Sorry, I'm volunteering you for that.
We could
No,
try,
that's absolutely true.
That's how we see
we
it.
could try beer yoga.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Where is this beer yoga?
I saw it on like a video, and it was like in London or something.
Yeah, I signed up for their club and stuff, and it's like downtown in London.
I'll go with take her own.
As long as it's supervised, I guess it's
I
okay.
don't know. I am a lightweight though. One is the limit. It's truly my limit. I don't know.
They don't serve light beer.
Oh,
They don't even know
maybe
what
half
that
is
is.
maybe.
Like
That's
to
taste.
taste.
That's
Okay, so we're gonna go through some more practical things. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns about culture and that kind of stuff? Okay, so to go through some more practical items, what do you need? These are the necessities that you need when you go abroad. So obviously everybody needs a passport and everybody has a passport, correct? That doesn't expire in the next like 3 months? No, you don't have one?
No, I have one, I'm saying, no, it doesn't
It's like,
expire
don't
next year,
If you are an American citizen and if you hold a US passport, you do not need a visa to go to the UK, at least right now. So if you do hold a passport of another country, come talk to me and we can see if you need to do anything more to get into the UK. But everybody has an American passport? Great. Okay. Other forms of identification. I recommend bringing other forms of ID in case something does happen to your passport or anything else. Any other forms of photo ID, it's just best practice to go ahead and bring those along because it has your name and it has your photo, and if anything happens to any other form of ID or any other important documentation, you have that proof with you. Even though you won't ever use like your driver's license, or you may not use your student ID, you could potentially use it to get maybe a discount on something. It's still just a good idea to kind of put it in with all of your other important documents. You don't need a school acceptance letter, and then just make copies of everything. So I had you all submit copies of your passport to the online portal, and it's not so much for us, it's more for you. You can access that online portal anywhere in the world securely via the internet. And so you have an automatic copy of your passport ready for you if something does happen to your original. But I would still recommend keeping copies of everything else at home. So if something does happen to that, you can reach out to whoever is at home and say, hey, I lost this, can you give me that information, and do whatever you need to do to kind of fix that situation.
So Rich and I, if somebody loses a passport and they get nervous about it, Rich and I can also reach the UCCS global office.
Absolutely,
And just
yeah.
have them kind of support.
And the American Embassy can give you a temporary
Yeah,
passport.
so they can
Okay.
give you like an emergency 90-day passport, and the good thing is usually in London, so the embassy is right there.
I have it marked on the map too.
Okay, I put it in there.
Well, they're open 24/7 if you get in trouble or need help.
Okay, sweet.
It's right
Yep.
there.
So they will issue, yes, if you do lose your passport, the important thing is to report it lost right away. And make sure that you get to the embassy as quickly as possible so they can issue you an emergency passport. And then once you're back in the States, you can get another real one. The reason why you want to do all this right away is so that they can make sure that there's nothing funky happening with your passport, with your original one that is missing.
And I was gonna bring that up about American passports are extremely valuable. And so that'll be a target of thieves, pickpockets. So do not put your passport in your backpack, because that's the first thing they'll grab. So they make, I know this sounds weird, but they make little pouches that you can around your neck under your clothes to keep your passport in.
Like those body wallets, like
Yeah.
what one does for Rome, because everyone was talking about the gypsies in Rome.
They're terrible, yeah.
But American passports are extremely hard to forge because there's a magnetic strip on the back. So they like to steal them and replace the photos, which is easier.
And if you don't have to take your passport out of your lockbox, don't. Just put it in there, and if you don't think you're gonna need it throughout the day, I'm trying to think, will they need it to go into
Into Parliament.
Parliament? So if you don't need it for anything, don't take it with you. Just leave it in your hotel room in the lockbox. Hey, so this is Amanda. Do you want to wait or do you want to
Sure.
go ahead and get started?
Ray went down to the first floor.
Okay.
We weren't sure where we were at today. We're like, we know it's School of Public Affairs. Let's take a guess. It's gonna be Natalie. So,
Okay, I'll give you a couple minutes then. Something else to know is that more for you two, if you're bringing UCCS technology abroad, like your laptop, just make sure to call IT and clear it with them and make sure that they know that you're taking that abroad. 99% of the time.
A little bit on the things that.
Yeah, most of the time, it's not an issue, and only if you're going to like high-risk countries, it becomes an issue, but just make sure to clear it with them.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead, so the Dean of Students office is here, and they're gonna talk a little bit more to you about some different items, but this is Amanda.
hello.
And Ray, and I'll just go ahead and let you guys kind of take over.
I got that form signed by the dean, I'll go get it tomorrow.
Perfect.
So can I ask, who is faculty and staff? Faculty, and then the rest are students?
Parents.
Or parents? Okay. Are parents going too?
No.
No, okay. Just here to learn. Awesome. And remind me, you're going to London and somewhere else, right?
Just London.
Just London, okay. So, like Elizabeth said, my name's Amanda. I'm the Assistant Dean of Students, and this is Ray. He's our Prevention and Outreach Coordinator. And we're just going to talk to you about a few things from the Dean of Students office specifically. Elizabeth is going to give you all of like the good abroad information, but there's just a few things that we like our students to know when they're traveling, and faculty staff too when you're traveling supervising students. So first and foremost is that the student code of conduct still applies to you. Sometimes students get across the ocean specifically and forget that, but it does. So anything that's prohibited under the student code of conduct you can't engage in while you're gone. And then we like to highlight a couple of things and a couple scenarios just for your safety. So one of the things that we usually talk about is alcohol and drugs. And our stance on alcohol and drugs when students are traveling abroad is you need to follow the law of the land. So if the drinking age is 21, you should be following the drinking age 21. If the drinking age is 18 and it's okay with your trip advisors, we have no rules against that. However, what I like to caution folks with is if, for instance, you're 18, 19, 20 and the drinking age is 18 and you've never drank before, like, is being in another country in an unfamiliar setting the best time to maybe experiment with that? Probably not. So make sure that you're making some good choices about that. Additionally, know all of the laws around alcohol if you're going to choose to drink. So I give this example of, we had a student a few years ago that was in Germany, and she thought she was doing the responsible thing by riding her bike home after she had had 2 beers. But in Germany, you can get a DUI on a bicycle. And so another car hit her, but because she had been drinking, she was ticketed with a DUI and ended up having to stay in Germany throughout that court case, which was about an extra 3 weeks after her program ended, which she had to fully fund the costs for, because that was a decision that she made. So if you are going to choose to participate, make sure that you take a look at the laws and that you're doing so responsibly. And then also just know, because you're going as a class, what your professors and faculty's expectations are for you and what they, some classes set out that it's a dry trip, some say only on weekends, some say only at this certain time. So just make sure you know that, because if your trip has extra requirements and you break those could also be a violation of the student code of conduct. Does all that make sense? Okay. So in terms of drugs, again, we take a very similar stance. You should follow the law of the land. If something is illegal there, you should not do it, because there may be instances where we can't provide the appropriate support to you. And one of those times is drugs. So if you are arrested or accused or charged with drugs, that is where all of the travel insurance, all of the university support, all of even the U.S. State Department support pulls way back, because there's just not a lot they can do when you're arrested, especially if it's a smuggling charge. So that being said, never carry anything that is not your own through customs, through an airport. through a train station. It might be another one of your group members, but I highly encourage you to just only carry your own bags. I know that that seems a little protective, but you never know. Like, I'm sure your whole group would not think to like that they probably are not doing that, but they may have met someone. And how many have seen Broke Down Palace? Has anybody? It's an older movie. I reference it all the time, and people are like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but it sticks in my head when I do these things. So it was like from the 90s, and it scared me for traveling abroad for a really long time. Because Claire Danes and her friend meet this guy in India, and they like fall in love, like one of them falls in love, and he gives her a souvenir, and then she carries the souvenir across the border, and of course the souvenir was full of cocaine, and she's like, but it was my boyfriend, I didn't do it, and then they like sign a statement, and then they end up in jail for like 20 years, and then they're trying to escape. It's this really crazy movie. It's not based on a true story. It's not based on a true story, but what
The Discovery Channel
has done some that are, right?
Yeah.
Like, because theirs is like how they're trying to, like the whole premise of the movie is how they're trying to escape this jail, not necessarily like what happened in advance. But I'm like, these are two nice young women that never would have smuggled drugs, right? They got tricked into it. And so that's why I was like, I know our students would never smuggle drugs, but people are looking for folks that would never smuggle drugs to like prey on. So never take anything from anybody else. That's the moral of the story. Even in somewhere like London, where it's, you know, more similar to Western culture and things like that, or to the U.S. culture and things like that. It's obviously Western culture. So that's kind of the deal with drugs. Again, just like with alcohol, if it's a substance you have never used before, I encourage you to think twice about that on a class trip specifically. You know, what would your faculty, what would your staff think of you if that's what you're choosing to engage in during this time, but it's not prohibited by our stance. As long as you're following along the country you're in, that's what we expect of you being abroad. Now, in terms of other expectations, some of you have probably been through a discrimination and harassment training before, and so what we expect of our students is that when they're traveling abroad, that they will follow the same standards that they do here on our campus, that they won't engage in any discrimination and harassment on our protected class standards, which are age, religion, national origin, gender, gender identity, sexual orientation. There's 13 of them, y'all. I can usually get to 11. Pregnancy, political affiliation, political philosophy, which are slightly different. Creed. Basically, here's what I like to say. If it's related to someone's identity, that's probably not the thing that you should be joking about or making fun of, right? It's pretty simple. And, you know, London is a very metropolitan place. You're going to encounter a lot of different subcultures within that. And, you know, just make sure that you're being respectful regardless of what folks around you may be engaging in. Like, go learn, meet people, but, like, that you're not engaging in those comments or things as well. Make sense? Okay. In terms of harassment, what we sometimes see is when folks are traveling with a group, especially, accidental harassment occurs. And accidental harassment is also not good, but we understand that most people didn't mean to. And so it's like when you're a little loopy because you've been traveling for 20 hours and you make that joke that you think is funny, and then everyone else is like, I cannot believe you just said that. What were you thinking? Right? Those are the kinds of things that you can address in the moment. They're not, I mean, they're a big deal, but they're not a big deal, right? But you do need to address them in the moment with your fellow team members. Like, that was not funny. Please do not make comments like that. Like, faculty in the room, if you're hearing stuff like that, like, you know, tell them, like, I know you might be punch drunk because you've been awake for 20 hours, but no. Or that we've been together for 2 weeks, but no. So that does sometimes happen when we have groups that are traveling together. They get to know each other really well. They let their guard down, and as they should. But, you know, just keep in mind that those things still aren't funny. If they weren't funny on our campus here, they aren't funny out in the bigger, you know, group when you're traveling. This part is for our faculty in the room. As you know, you're mandatory reporters. That doesn't leave when you're traveling abroad, so if something happens, if it's low level, you can wait till you get back to report it, but if it is something that's urgent, you should go ahead and contact public safety, or not public safety, the Office of Institutional Equity. What I was going to say is that you can always contact public safety to get connected because somebody answers that phone 24 hours a day, so you don't have to like think about the math in your head. You can call and they'll like get you connected with someone to make that report. if it's something that you need to talk about now. The other thing that we talk about is sexual assault. So UCCS has an affirmative definition of consent, and that continues to apply to students while they're traveling abroad, regardless of whatever policy, law of the country that you're in. Our expectation of you is that you will still continue to practice what is, our policy and what is the right thing to do, which is that if you're going to engage in any sexual activity, you're going to make sure that the person that you're engaging with also wants to do that, and you'll either get the yes or the head nod or something, right? And so that's our expectation. That being said, the other thing that I like to share is that my guess is you'll be sharing rooms, right? And so some of the challenges we have sometimes had is someone bringing someone back to the room and the other roommate being uncomfortable with it. So be mindful of that. I cannot tell you what to do in that scenario, but know that if you are putting your roommate in a position to watch, listen, or hear things that they don't want to watch, listen, or hear, there's a reason I talk about this, y'all. that you may actually be sexually harassing them, even if what you're doing with this other person is totally consensual. But at the same time, I don't want you to go off with a stranger and go to their house, right? So you just have to use some common sense and make some good decisions if you meet the person that you think might be your soulmate. So,
You're awfully quiet over there.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
That's
That is definitely
so I know this is awkward to talk about, y'all. I'm sorry. I try to make it slightly humorous because I think when we're being humorous, we let our guard down and we let that information in a little bit better. But just be thoughtful, make your decisions. Then in terms of if something happens to you, right? Like we want you guys to take the proactive steps to be safe. We want you to stay in groups and all of the things that Elizabeth is going to talk to you about safety-wise. We really encourage that. But at the end of the day, if someone is sexually assaulted, it's not your fault because you did or you didn't follow the rules. Right? No one is going to blame you if that happens from the university standpoint. So if you are assaulted, we really want you to report to your staff and faculty so that they can get you help. Know that they're mandatory reporters back here on campus, so when they get back, they're going to tell us so that we can get you counseling and that we can make sure that it doesn't impact your academics, or impacts as little as possible, right? Because there's no way it's not going to impact it, but that it impacts it as little as possible. If something like that happens, I have two recommendations. The first is to use your international SOS to find a safe hospital. While I have not been to London, I'm kind of assuming a little bit, there are countries that we tell people do not go to the hospital, contact the consulate and find out where to go. Because if you're assaulted, that can actually be charged against you instead of the person doing it. I do not believe that England is that way, but I do recommend calling that SOS number to find out the best and friendliest hospital for you to go to in a situation like that.
And Katie and Rich have both researched that and
Excellent.
Yeah, there's, on the maps, I've got numerous hospitals.
Fantastic. So that's my first recommendation. My second recommendation is to call public safety here, because again, they will answer the phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they can get you in touch with Jamie Duvall, who is our risk manager, who has a lot of resources through the CU system and through the Colorado State system for abroad, for Coloradans that are traveling abroad that find themselves in trouble. So he can get you connected with other resources that we might not have available 24 hours a day at UCCS, but that are available throughout the state. So that's my second recommendation. Is one, call the International SOS number, find out where the best hospital to go to is. I know that you have several listed, that's fantastic. And then two, to call public safety back here to report it and to get the support and the help that you need. We are very lucky that none of our students have ever been assaulted abroad. We hope that that continues. But again, while this is a worst case scenario, it's better to be prepared than not know what to do if the worst happened. So that's about it from our office. Do you guys have any questions about expectations from us in regards to travel, or any questions that I can answer?
The only question that I had, just on a campus level, is just in response to any kind of significant threat that might happen in that country that locks us down in the country. For example, I was in Mexico
Mm-hmm.
during 9/11 and we got,
Yeah.
the airports were locked and we got, so in that scenario, are we reaching to the campus for like financial support for keeping these guys in country? Or are we reaching to EF? I just wanted to ask that question
So,
today.
Both.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, in terms of your first line of support, you have that tour director on site with EF, and they have, we've talked about emergency planning and risk management with EF, and which is why we use them, and which is why they have a tour director on site. So anything that happens and you inform EF, EF will immediately inform our office, or we will already know about a major incident happening. So in those cases, what we'll be doing is reaching out to the necessary offices on campus to kind of, collaborate and get you situated. But the immediate thing that you need to do, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, is making sure that everybody is together in a safe location. Yep, or you know where they are and they are safe. Because, and then be prepared for someone from UCCS to be reaching out to you. To kind of connect.
Set up logistical.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Like when they had that shooting at the Brussels airport, I'm sure that place was closed for a day.
Yeah, right. They were closed at 9/11 for a week, and we were in Puerto Vallarta for a week, and we had gotten trip insurance, which thank God, because then our hotel was secured for that entire time. So I just had that thought that I wanted to kind of communicate today.
Yeah, so you're like triple covered by UCCS, by International SOS, and by EF.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So in the event that we couldn't get a hold of her directly, we would be able to go through.
Yeah, so if something happens and you can't get a hold of your student, I would suggest calling one of two places, calling Elizabeth in the Global Engagement Office or calling our public safety, who would get you connected with Jamie Duvall, who's our risk manager. That if he knows when all of our students are traveling abroad and where they're going, they get that list, or he should get that list from Elizabeth, and that still happens.
If you can't get a hold of her, I've given
His home.
my home and my
Yeah.
cell phone, so if you need, call me.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking in the extreme
Right,
case where phones are shut
Well,
down
anybody
because of
can
the
call.
craziness.
Do we have the numbers in the packet there?
You do.
Okay.
You have all
And those
student
two numbers
numbers,
also?
me and Rich's first primary and secondary, and then you have the Global Engagement Office listed.
Yeah.
And do you guys have public safety's phone number in there? I'm assuming you do.
It's in the handbook.
If not, we can write it up on the board real quick, right? You wanna write it on that side? If you're taking a cell phone, I encourage you to just program it in your cell phone. Because I like for you to have it when you're on campus anyway, so that you don't have to think about it if there's an emergency here, but also if there's an emergency there.
Yeah, and our office works like in conjunction with risk management, so any way it goes about, any way like things happen,
Yeah.
the same people will be involved
Yeah.
and be informed of
Exactly.
the situation and be on top of it, so.
So, like, I just think, again, they're a really good number because if you're not like trying to do the time math, they have all of their cell phone numbers. So like if they're at home, like they could contact, because they have access to the employee cell phone list for emergencies. So,
Alright. Any other questions? Alright,
all right.
cool, thanks.
Thank you guys.
For stopping in, yeah. Okay.
Enjoy your trip. Have a lot of fun. I know I'm like the Debbie Downer, but it's gonna be great. Like all the stuff I talk about hardly ever happens. So it's gonna be awesome.
Alright, so to kind of keep moving forward, we're going to talk about some packing stuff. And this may get a little boring, but I just want to make sure that everybody is informed of kind of the same things regarding packing and airline travel. So the first thing is, if you have any maintenance medication or acute emergency medication, obviously bring it, but make sure it's in the original packaging. The border patrols don't like to see like pills and baggies. That's very questionable. So make sure it has your name and the prescription, and everything is labeled in there. If it's a controlled substance, for any reason. It also is best practice just to bring a doctor's note in case they're like, why are you bringing this controlled substance into our country? So,
What
make
should,
sure all,
sorry, what should the doctors know? Like, does it need to say like, cause I'm on a controlled substance, so
Okay.
like, in that case,
it just, you know,
The
basics
original
about,
prescription bottle.
Your name, the doctor's
Yeah.
name,
okay,
and that you have a current prescription.
and that
Okay.
you are required to take this.
Okay.
And have it with you.
okay,
So, yeah, your name, the prescription,
okay.
that kind of stuff.
The one thing I want to say here too is just recognition of the length of our flight. That you're cautious about the length of our flight, that you're not putting that in a checked bag
Right.
if you
Exactly.
need that for the, because how long is our flight?
9 hours.
9 hours.
And you can bring more than 4 ounces in your carry-on if it's like a necessity, where you have like a stated necessity for, like if it's a liquid medication or something like that, to have that with you.
She's right about the prescription bottles. I take Crestor, which is a cholesterol medicine, and I had it in an aspirin bottle.
Okay.
Because we get it in a big thing.
Yeah,
And
they
so I just,
challenged it and,
they took it,
oh,
but it wasn't an opiate, or, so they just, it was confiscated, so I just didn't take it while I was on that trip. That was some years back, but went through customs and
They
they,
haven't gotten more
prescription.
lenient.
yeah. And they opened it up and they said, what's this? I said, it's Crestor. And they verified it.
huh.
It was the Germans too, so, the Nazis.
Still
And
on their breath.
then they go, okay, well, we're taking it.
Yeah.
So prescription bottles,
Yeah.
Yeah, and the borders are so tightly controlled right now that it's just always best to be safe than sorry. Just have everything in its original packaging, and if you do need a note, to get that note. Research about contraceptives and feminine hygiene products before you go abroad. This isn't like a big thing because you'll be in London, but the main thing is that there's differences in like the names and the packaging and the standards and that kind of stuff and what they look like. So if you just bring everything you need with you, because you won't be there for that long and you don't want to have to like go running around London to find that kind of stuff. London will have different outlets and voltage amounts. So a really big necessity if you're using laptops, hair dryers, I'm assuming your hotel will have a hair dryer, but curling irons, that kind of stuff, is to bring a converter and or an adapter. And these are two different things, so I just want to talk about those for a little bit. A converter is an adapter, but an adapter is not a converter. And the reason is the converter converts the voltage from the UK voltage amounts, and I'm not like an engineering student, so this isn't super technical, but it converts the voltage amounts from UK voltage to what your device or what you're using would use on an American style outlet or a voltage system. I don't know what the technical terms are, but does everybody kind of get the gist of that?
yeah, they can run 220 there, and your devices here are 110.
Yeah,
So you
So
plug
you're
it
gonna
in,
fry
your
it.
hair dryer will just explode.
yeah. And it's happened
Be
to
a
me.
laser beam on your head.
It has happened to me. I almost started my apartment on fire in Spain from my straightener. A converter, or an adapter, I'm sorry, simply adapts your American plug to the outlet style of the UK. And it won't convert the voltage. And you're gonna wanna use these two things differently. I never use my converter for like my laptop or my cell phone. Typically it hasn't worked for me, it hasn't worked well. I use it for like, you want to use it if you have like an electric razor, if you have like a straightener, curling iron, or blow dryer. That's where you want to use a converter. An adapter you want to use for your all of your electronics, because they will convert the voltage for you, like your cell phone, your laptop, tablets, that kind of stuff. So make sure you know what you're buying when you buy it, and make sure you know if it's a converter, if it's an adapter, that kind of stuff. Most of them are like little puzzles. You have to kind of figure them out because they're multi-region adapters and converters, meaning that you could take the same converter and adapter to Asia and Europe and Australia and South America. So you'll have to look at this little like map that they typically use, and they'll have a map of the different outlets, and you'll have to kind of figure out by poking and prodding at it which outlet or which thing you're going to be using. So does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So also airlines have weight limits for luggage. I think that we all know that. So just make sure you're accounting for anything that you are purchasing while you're abroad and making some room physically and some room with the weight limit for those items to come back to the States. I typically say pack for 2 weeks. I would not say pack for 2 weeks for this program, but make sure you are aware of the weather over there. It's not going to be as warm as it is here. Definitely will not be as sunny. So in the very least, you're going to want to bring some kind of rain, all-weather jacket that's like a liner. Shorts are not very common abroad, especially in Europe. So if you wear, like for the girls, if you wear really like short shorts, you will stick out pretty bad. Not saying you can't do it, but just saying that it's not a very common thing over there to wear. So like longer shorts, like those Bermuda style shorts, or pants, or like skirts and stuff. And you need to bring that business attire for the Parliament. And we talked about that, and everybody is aware of that, correct?
And the courthouse.
In the courthouse, okay.
Those are the two places.
So, if you are checking a bag, know, and Katie highlighted this, know the difference of what you need to put in your carry-on and what you need to put in your checked bag. The checked bag goes into the airplane. You will not have access to it from when you check in Denver to when you get to Heathrow. So make sure you have everything you need for a good 48 hours in your carry-on, and whatever you need to be comfortable for extended amount of travel. And that means you being awake for 20 plus hours potentially. So what do you need in your carry-on? You obviously need your passport, and they will check you in with your passport at the check-in counter. So they'll check your passport when you get your ticket at the counter. Any kind of travel documents that you feel like you may need, flight itinerary, contact information, that kind of stuff, especially for you two. All of your medications, make sure you have in there, cell phone, emergency contact, a small overnight kit, because you're going to be on an overnight flight, so whatever you need to be comfortable on an overnight flight. And then any kind of valuables that you have. Something else to note is that, I guess I'll go over the check bag first. So what do you put in your check bag? Obviously your big items that are not valuable, clothes, shoes, accessories, outerwear, electrical appliances, that kind of stuff. Something to note about check bags is that it's really tempting to want to lock them. However, and you can lock them, but make sure you get a TSA approved lock to put on your check bag. And most bags that you if you've bought it within the last couple of years already have TSA approved locks in the bags. But just make sure to double check, or else they will break your suitcase open, especially on international flights. They will. And if stuff seems weird in your suitcase when you open it in London, it's because it should be because the customs agents have gone through your stuff, and it's weird and creepy, but they do it to pretty much everybody. So don't forget your converter and or adapter. Make sure that you're packing for the proper weather conditions. Make sure to keep your passport with you at all times. Something I want to note about airport travel before we get into that is that you will be going through two different types of checks. And the first type of check is like an immigration check, and that's to make sure that you are legally able to exit the US and enter the UK. So you'll do that departing America, and then you'll do that entering England. So you'll have to do that a couple times. You also will have to fill out some paperwork when you get, before you get into England on the plane, so that they can kind of check you when you go through immigration. The second type of check that you do is a customs check, and what that is making sure what you're bringing between the two countries you can bring between those two countries. And typically they're looking for excessive amounts of cash, agricultural items, if you've been on a farm, that kind of stuff. Since you will all be in London, you will be fine with that aspect. Something to note is that any kinds of fruits, vegetables, or meat products are not allowed back in the US. So it may be tempting if you find some like really awesome blood sausage.
Want to bring it back.
To bring it, and you're like, oh my gosh, I just need to bring this excessive amount of blood sausage back. I must have this blood sausage. You're like, okay, well, I'll just throw it in my suitcase and be good. Nope, they will toss that. And they have dogs everywhere in customs when you enter back into the United States, and they will confiscate it. So fruits, vegetables, meat products. You can bring like wines and alcoholic beverages back in more limited quantities. I think the limit when I was in Spain was 2 bottles of wine, unfortunately. So I would have packed my suitcase if there wasn't a limit. But if you find a good gin or something that they're known for in London and want to bring it back, just make sure that you keep it around 2 bottles so that they don't confiscate it. Okay. So everybody's flying together and for the most part, and knows your connections, where you're departing, that kind of stuff, correct? Okay. So all of international flights serve meals on board. And sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. It just depends on the day. But if you have any special dietary requirements, make sure you let the airline know of this dietary requirement. And what you can do is you can just simply call the airline and get connected with customer support and say, hey, I'm allergic to XYZ, or I am gluten-free, or I'm a vegetarian. Most of the time they will have a meat and a vegetarian option available anyway, but sometimes they run out of one or the other before they may get to you. So just make sure you call ahead so that they know to accommodate for any type of special dietary requirements. You won't be served any meals in the US, but when you depart the US, you will be served dinner and then a breakfast too. So that's standard for flying to London. Inform the people that want to know that you got there safely of your flight information. There's these really cool flight trackers that you can look up online, so let them know and they can track your flight. And Katie and Rich will be helping to coordinate the arrival with EF, so just make sure that you have eyes on them when you land.
I'll wear a bright green baseball hat.
Okay.
So you can see me in the airport.
I know.
I'm serious, I do
I will
that.
try and find something obnoxious to wear too. I have a ball cap with sparkles on it. That's what I'm doing.
It's
That's
the
what I'm
Seattle
doing.
Seahawks baseball
Yeah.
hat.
Okay.
But you can see me in a big crowd.
Okay.
I've done that before, so.
Yeah, I know it's kind of corny, but we've traveled and have similar clothing. Do you guys plan on doing something like that so you can identify your groups?
They have blue backpacks. They all
Yeah.
have the same color.
Nice.
Target on it.
This color.
The target on it.
Yeah.
It's a bullseye.
It's almost like that could be your personal bag.
We have a hat that sparkles and lights up. Do you want that?
So awesome.
Especially this is Seattle green. You'll be able to spot me.
I know, that's,
So
that's a good idea. though.
Just when my wife and I travel, I wear it,
Yeah,
because she
just for airports.
loses me in the airport.
You lose her.
I lose
It's
her.
all hard to miss, so.
Okay, next thing is have some cash in the local currency. So what that means for London is the British pound. And it's, the sign for it is like this little cursive L is what it kind of looks like. And I'm gonna look up the exchange rate right now for you.
We have a plan of doing an exchange at DIA. Is that
Yep,
what
there's
we
a
said?
kiosk right there.
So once we check in to Delta, I was thinking then we can move to that if you want, before we go through security. Is it on that side of security?
No, it's on the other side.
It's on the gate side, so
Most
we'll,
of the time
I
they'll have
saw it.
several kiosks where you
Okay.
can do exchanges.
that's probably playing it safe
Yeah,
though.
every
To check
concourse
in,
has one.
get through security, and then do the exchange at DIA. Okay,
Every concourse has one.
okay, sweet.
I'm trying to
So,
get
because
up
we
here.
have to give you the tip money, right?
Yeah, but that's at the end.
Okay, so I wasn't sure like if we could just give it to you.
Yeah, I'll just collect it at the end of the
So
trip.
are
Yeah.
most
Oh, here it
businesses
is.
in
'Cause I want you
pounds,
to be
do
sure
they
you wanna
take
do it.
pound or euro or?
They don't take euros.
They're not doing
Yes,
it, they
just-
cut
Never
euros
take
out?
euros,
But I don't
they
wanna,
only take pounds.
investment, 'cause
Mhm.
and I'm
But they'll
gonna
take
make a
credit
breakdown.
cards. So if
So
you,
you
just
know
a little bit of
what
cash for,
each
Just
for.
consequential.
Yeah, for-
stuff.
So.
for stuff that
I
you would
wanted to
normally
exchange
pay cash
it
for,
beforehand because I know that
and
DIA
then
has a lot of
Yeah.
fees.
use your
That's
credit
okay.
card
Yeah.
or your debit card.
Australia too. Yeah.
So
Because it'll make the conversion on that.
yeah.
Yeah, right, you get
So-
the best rate too.
Yeah, so the exchange rate is for $1 is 78.78 British pounds, so basically 78 cents to the US dollar, which is actually really, really good right now. When I was traveling, it was 2 to 1, so I was getting,
Last summer there was $1.75 to a pound,
yeah, it's crazy.
so it's gone down 50 cents a pound since then. So it's, this is a great time to go.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you Brexit, at least for that.
Yeah.
Make sure you're aware that, you know, when you're purchasing items, they are in British pounds, which means that everything is going to be a little bit pricier, not just because the dollar is weaker than the pound, but also because you're in one of the most expensive cities in the world. So, just make sure you're aware of that. Make sure to bring, and just reiterating, make sure to bring your small overnight kit, any medications you may need. And that's kind of pretty much my part about flying. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Cause I know that the liquid stuff has to be in a quart-sized bag or whatever.
Yep.
For the carry-on.
Yeah.
For carry.
Is that the same for like the medications? I know they have to be in their prescription bottles, but do they have to be also in a quart-sized Ziploc?
Just
Or-
pack that. If you can fit them in one, that's
Okay.
fine. But if not, as long as you have that letter and it has your name on it and everything, then you should be good. If you're just bringing like shampoos and stuff in that quart size, that should be okay. And then having your medication separate should be okay.
Okay, cool.
But then again, sometimes TSA is really, really picky, and sometimes they aren't. So it kind of just depends on the state of security at the moment, about how picky they're going to be. Okay, and you guys are talking about money, so that was a great transition. So, the first thing is we talked about having some British pounds on you when you get in country, but also you're going to probably be bringing a debit and a credit card. So make sure you have alerted your bank, if it's a debit card, to the fact that you are traveling overseas and where you're going and when you're going to be there. And then do the same for your credit card. Every bank and every credit card company knows how to process these types of travel alerts. So just give them a call, say, hey, I need to put a travel alert on my card, and they'll go ahead and do it. It takes 2 seconds. But it's really important, and it will make or break your time in London, because if you don't do it before you go abroad, it's a real big pain to do it after you get there and after they've already shut off your card. Because usually it takes a good 24 hours for you to be able to use it again. So make sure all your cards have chips in them. For the most part, you can still use cards that swipe, but they haven't had that technology in so long that they don't even know like how to do it. When I was in Spain, I encountered that, and they're like, you can't use that card, and they didn't even know that like swipe strip existed. So I had to be like, no, it works, see? So I had to show them how to use it, but just make sure you have chips in your card because it's more secure and it's just universal now.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You have to worry about RF theft, where they
Oh, where they can like walk by and.
walk by,
No, not with the chip.
not with the chips. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
With the stripe, yes.
Oh, I see.
Because
Yeah,
it's
so-
magnetic and when they read it,
So
it
you don't
gives
have to
off
buy
a
a
signal.
special,
So I actually bought a passport holder from Walmart that has like all these card slots in it too, that is RF, like that kind of thing. So you can find all that stuff at like just any kind of Walmart
Okay, thank you.
too. But for the most part, like if you have all cards of chips, you don't have to worry about it. Have several sources of money for emergencies and put them in separate locations. So that means cash, credit, and debit. It seems excessive to be carrying like that amount, all those forms of money on you, but don't carry all of them on you at the same time in country. Make sure you store a little bit in your lockbox, or have like an emergency credit card in your lockbox in case something does happen to your wallet or your purse or whatever. And we talked about the currency exchange rate. It fluctuates. It's not going to fluctuate that much while you're there, but just know that one day you may be getting a better deal than the other. Know how much your bank or credit card company will charge you to take out money in foreign currency. So for a credit card, this means a foreign currency transaction fee potentially. So inquire with your credit card company about that. For a debit card, know how much, if you're going to take out cash in country, they will charge you a foreign currency withdrawal fee, and that just depends on the bank how much it is. If it's a percentage of the amount that you take out, or if it's just a flat percentage, either way they will charge you to take out foreign currency. I bank at a really like local bank in Iowa because that's where I lived before, and so you don't have to worry about like, you know, if you bank at a super local bank, that stuff not working abroad, because I've never had a problem with my stuff. It's all set up to be international. If you won't be there for a long time, but if you plan on spending a lot of cash in country, just take out one big lump sum so you don't keep getting those foreign currency withdrawal fees. Budget, obviously don't spend all of your money in one day. And if you feel comfortable, grant a responsible party access to your bank accounts in case of an emergency, like if your identity is stolen, if any of your cards are stolen, so that you can call somebody right away to kind of get that shut off. Any questions about money issues? Most important thing, if you don't do anything but take your passport, is call your banks to know that, to let them know. Okay. Communication. So friends and family will be expecting to hear from you, and establish a set manner of communicating with them that will work well for both of you when you are overseas. That being said, you will be traveling for an extended period of time, so make sure you let them know that you may not be able to contact them for a while. And when you get in country, you have to go through customs, you have to go through immigration, you have to you have to figure out where you're going. So even after you land, it will take you maybe an additional 4 hours to actually get to your hotel, depending on how smoothly everything goes. So just make sure that people who are expecting to hear from you know that it will be, even after you land, an extended amount of time before you actually will be settled. Check in with Rich and Katie when you plan to go off in groups on your own. Make sure that they know at least the general area that you're going to be, and some kind of time frame of when you should be back, because we don't want to get in a scenario where we have no idea where you are.
If
So,
you're late, I'm going there.
Yeah. I have on the packet too established a 5 o'clock proof of life text. That will happen every day. 5 o'clock proof of life text, either way. But we'll talk about it too and check in, just to let us know what your tentative plans are, where you're headed, if you're not with us, if you're not going with one of us. So we'll talk about that, yeah.
Also check with your phone carrier, and I know Katie has done a lot of research on this. See the best way to use your phone overseas. Sometimes you can turn on an international roaming plan. I don't recommend buying a new SIM card there. That's just really expensive for the amount of time you're being there. Research what forms of communication work best and for the people expecting to hear from you. WhatsApp, FaceTime, Facebook chat, Skype, they all work off of Wi-Fi, and iMessaging does too, but if you want to message somebody that does not use an iPhone, that can be problematic when you're overseas.
Before you go on
Yeah.
with that, some of the countries we've been to don't have very good Wi-Fi service, or you have to pay for it. Is London that way?
No, they have Wi-Fi everywhere.
Is it free though, where you,
Depends. They have, like, you go to Starbucks, it's free. And there's like a Starbucks every 10 feet. I'm exaggerating.
right, but they're everywhere.
They're
So
everywhere.
you,
So,
it's easy enough to get Wi-Fi
well, Wi-Fi.
Yep.
and not pay.
But there's a Starbucks like everywhere.
Okay, any other questions about communication? Okay, to move on to health. So, we all have purchased the International Health Insurance Plan, great. It's mainly used for emergency situations, and it also has trip coverage on it, for like lost luggage and things like that. But the important thing is that it also includes repatriation and emergency evacuation, which are also covered by International SOS as well. So if something does happen where we need to get you out of the country, that is all covered by insurance. Also, if you want to talk with your regular insurance provider, if you like need to see the doctor while you're there. The thing about that is the British system is a social healthcare system, which is very different than the US system. So like when you go to the doctor there, like here they say, okay, well, give me your insurance card there. They won't necessarily say that. And anything that you do get services for, you may need to pay for up front there, but it will be a lot, the idea is that it's a lot less expensive, but you can submit a claim to the International Health Insurance Company in which they reimburse you. Does that make sense? Okay. We don't have any CDC, additional CDC recommendations on immunizations and vaccinations for London. And we talked extensively about medications. The other thing that I have about medications is to know the generic equivalent or the scientific name of your medication if something does happen to it. Because we use a lot of name brand medications here that they may not necessarily know the name of that in the UK. Does that make sense? Okay. Also, it's really important, in the very least, to talk to Katie and Rich or whoever you feel more comfortable talking to about any necessary health issues. And these are things that may come up when you are abroad. For example, if you have a severe allergy, or something along those lines that may be an issue. And the important thing is that we don't want to know that information just to be nosy. It's more of so that they know what to do in case something does happen. And obviously they would keep all of that information confidential. But the important thing is that it's helping us help you in those circumstances, and they can have some background about, what may be going on if something were to happen. So whoever you feel comfortable talking to, please just let them know so that they can at least be aware if anything does happen. Experiencing depression and or anxiety while being abroad is normal but should be temporary. We talked about culture shock a little bit, so you are going to feel a lot of those ups and downs in terms of emotions. It's totally normal for everybody to go through that, but if it's becoming an issue where you think that you've hit your limits on that kind of stuff, please let one of them know immediately so that we can kind of get you the help that you need in that case. And expectations of traveling abroad for an extensive amount of time and being abroad can have implications on your personal health. For example, some of you will be sharing a living space. You're going to have a very weird routine when you're there because you will be 8 hours ahead, or is it 7?
It's
7.
It's 7.
7.
7, yeah. So you're going to be 7 hours ahead, so your
No, I
body.
think it's 8 from here, isn't it?
I
It's
saw
7.
7.
Is it
It's
7?
7.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know Madrid is 8. But your body's going to still feel like it's back in Colorado Springs. So if you have this routine, specifically with medications or with food, if you're a diabetic, you're going to need to kind of make those adjustments in your head for what that means when you are in London and when you are traveling, because you will be on a very weird time frame. So also, you will be sleep deprived to some extent. I don't know anybody that sleeps as deeply as they do in their bed on an airplane. So what does a lack of sleep mean for your personal health? And then, a temporary sense of loneliness and cultural adjustment. You won't be surrounded by all your comforts from home. So what does that mean? And then you're going to obviously have a change in normal diet. So think about what all those things, what kind of impact those things will have on your personal health and on your routine, and make sure to talk to your doctor or talk to Rich, Katie, or I about kind of ways to cope through that, or talk to the counseling or wellness center here about how to best cope with those changes. All right? And then in the end, know your own personal limits in terms of those ups and downs and your personal health. Some last things to go over: prepare for the location that you're going. So obviously coat, sunscreen, cold flu, feminine hygiene, stomach, head, hand sanitizer. Those are always good ideas to bring abroad. And then we don't have any real big concerns about off-limits eating or drinking things in London, or street food in the Philippines may not be as safe, but in London for the most part you're okay with pretty much everything. Any questions, comments, concerns on health? Okay, personal safety. So the biggest thing that we talk about is just having a sense of awareness for your surroundings and your location. Who's around you? Where are you? Are they too close? Do you not know this person? That kind of stuff. And I'm going to talk about this, but I don't want you to think that it's like a victim mentality where you're asking to get robbed or mugged or something to happen to you because you weren't aware at the moment. But it's kind of like defensive driving. The more you're aware, the less likely it is to happen to you. So use common sense. Use a small, secure bag. It may be tempting to want to bring backpacks everywhere, but especially right now with the situation in London, backpacks may not be the best thing to be walking around with, because they may, you may get more scrutiny for carrying those around, especially in those touristy locations. If you do choose to bring a backpack for your own personal safety and security, especially if you're in a crowded area, just flip it around, wear it on your front. I do it all the time, and put your arms around it like you're hugging it, especially when you're on the tube. That's a really good idea.
Same with your purse.
Yeah.
Don't leave your purse. Pickpockets are real big there. They're not in this country. So if your purse is behind you, somebody will unzip it. They like to steal cell phones. Push it in front of you when you ride on the tube, because you'll be next to people and you'll be jostled a lot. So That's one tip I remember.
Yeah, and when you're traveling as groups, you're a target.
Yeah.
I mean, you will be easily identified as a group
Yeah, so,
of tourists.
but the cell phone is the big one, they like to just unzip and pull the cell phone out.
They're smooth.
Yeah, we'll never feel it.
Don't feel it.
And oftentimes, and we'll talk about that in a second, but he's absolutely right with, I always wear when I'm traveling a crossbody purse because it's just a little bit more difficult for them to get off of you. Like they can't just like run by and like rip it off. And my purse for when I'm traveling has like 2 forms of security. It has a zipper and it has like a flap that goes over the zipper. So it's just a little bit extra security. And when I'm in crowded places, I always put my hand over it. For guys, that means don't put your wallet in your back pocket. And make sure wherever your stuff is in your pockets that you have kind of a hand on it so that you can still feel it there and people can't just like, you know, run by and rip it out. You're obviously going to be traveling in groups through public transportation a lot, and he is absolutely right. While it does feel more secure because you are in a group of people that you know and trust, that also can make you a target, and don't get into that herd mentality sense where you feel more secure because you are in a group. If anything, you're more distracted and you are more of a target. Because you know you're talking to people, you're interacting with each other, but so you need to keep that sense of awareness around you. And then in those crowded and touristy areas especially, you know, pickpockets are just everywhere, and they have different innovative schemes that they like to use, and oftentimes they work in teams. So sometimes you know, like we know about the like run by and just rip everything out kind of tactic, or you know, the sleight of hand, but oftentimes they'll use like distraction techniques too. So someone will engage you, and then and while you're distracted with the person that you're talking with or kind of interacting with, another person will be working behind to kind of get in your purse or in your pockets and stuff. So. And there's this technique that I just saw where like someone bumps into you and makes you like drop your stuff. And like I said, it always is evolving what they're doing and their techniques and their strategies. But if anybody is, especially in those crowded areas, is interacting with you or like comes up and makes like weird gestures or like bumps into you, be like hyper aware of like your things and what is going on.
If someone wants a picture with you, and we came across this actually in California about 1.5 years ago, Bailey and her sister were walking on the beach, and this one nationality came up and asked for a picture. And so they put their arms around them. You know, they didn't want to be rude and say no. They thought, oh, they just want to take pictures with Americans. Well, our other daughter had friends of that nationality and told them what happened. She says, they were pickpocketing you. And was it you or Sid that felt the hand on your butt?
Yeah.
Sydney, our other daughter, felt a hand on her back pocket. And that's indeed what they were trying to do, is steal her phone or her money.
Yep.
So,
And it's really tempting to want to put your phone in your pocket too, but don't, like, just don't do it. So yeah, that's a great one. That's a great example. Obviously, like Katie and Rich know where you're going and when you're going to be back. And in a case where you don't exactly know where you are, always act like you know where you are and you're like on a mission. I've been lost so many times, but anybody who's around me would have no idea that I'm completely lost. I'm just like, I'm going in that direction and that's the direction I'm going. And when you find like a safe spot or you can kind of jump into like a convenience store or something, do that and then kind of readjust yourself and figure out where you're going. Don't be like that, oh, I wonder where I am with the big map out. Like that's like asking for somebody to approach you, and that's not necessarily what you want. So just always have that like confidence of like, I belong here, I know exactly where I'm going, that kind of stuff.
Well, and I'm gonna prep you guys with some like go-to cards that you just carry around, little cards that'll have me and Rich's name and like the emergency numbers on it. And so you know that if you ever get separated or if you get nervous, if you just stand still and text us, we'll come get you. That's what we're doing there. We're gonna come save you. Wherever you are, we'll come find you. If you ever get nervous or separated.
Yeah, just go into a convenience store
Yeah.
or a Starbucks or a
Right,
coffee shop,
have coffee, we'll come get
That's
you.
right.
and we're on our way. I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the
Right,
morning,
me either.
So-
We'll come get you.
yeah.
Okay. So, LGBTQ adjustments. So in London, this is not a huge concern, but just in terms of having different expectations. And for the most part in London, LGBTQ differences are celebrated and recognized just as much as they are, even more. You still may get some weird looks or scrutiny, and that's just the reality of evolving perceptions of that kind of stuff. But if you have any questions or concerns about that, please let me know. And we can get you connected with some resources and with the Mosaic office. Any questions about that? Okay. And Amanda talked about this a little bit more, and we're gonna kind of re-go over some stuff that she talked about, but in some more specifics. But dating and sex, different cultures, different norms, interactions may have different meanings. For the most part in London, it's pretty similar in terms of that kind of stuff. I will have to be completely honest with you and say that American women, there's a perception of that American women are very open sexually overseas, and men, for the most part, if they know that you're like an American student over there, like on a study abroad, they tend to like get really excited and try to interact with you on those terms, and it can be very innocent or it can be very aggressive. But for the most part, set clear expectations with yourself and with your partner about what that means for you and what you are comfortable with. Don't be surprised if somebody is very aggressive with you in terms of approaching you. I've flat out had people ask me if I would have sex with them overseas, like just on the street. Not like I have no idea who this person is, but that's kind of as bold as they can be, or they can be very flirty as they are here. So just know that there can be implications for being an American abroad, and especially a woman abroad in Europe, and it may feel really uncomfortable, but the point is to kind of have that expectation that it may happen, and I don't want you to I don't want to be saying that it's okay, but I want to be very real about that and have you, especially as women, be prepared that interaction may happen. And if it does get aggressive in nature, obviously, let the authorities know, talk to Katie or Rich if you feel really uncomfortable about what happened, and we'll get you connected to those resources, and they will definitely follow up. In the end, protect yourself. Like I said, I don't like to have this like, well, you deserved it mentality, but set those expectations with yourself and do what you can beforehand to protect yourself. Amanda talked about this a little bit. Laws differ regarding dating, sexual assault, and violence. For the most part, you are as protected as from sexual assault and dating violence in the UK as you are here, but there are differing laws. I have some resources in the guide, as well as up here for you to look at. If you have any specific questions, you can always follow up with any one of us too. Any questions about that?
Regarding the laws, are there laws that are significantly different that they would have to worry about? Like simple jaywalking or, just simple...
I think that...
Well, that's a big point, because they drive on the left, and I actually got hit. You can ask my wife, it scared her to death. Because I looked the wrong way when I
That's
crossed the
happened to me
street.
You look left and they're coming from the right.
It just nicked me. But remember, they're coming from a different direction, and I was unconsciously, I stepped off the curb and right in front of a car.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I've also almost been run over by a bus in Wales, so.
Yeah, we have laws that if there's a pedestrian in the street, they stop, but we've had another, like Italy, you just run.
They don't stop for you.
You're a target. People are trying to get you.
So in London specifically, I'm not sure about the laws regarding jaywalking, but because London is a very busy city, you will actually always see everybody obeying like the crosswalks. You don't see people just like sprinting across the street, hardly ever, because it is a big city, there is a lot of traffic, public transportation, and their sidewalk system is very efficient and, you know, very sophisticated. So it's not difficult to obey like the sidewalk laws. So just, you know, make sure that you are using the crosswalks there. I'm not sure about laws specific to that, but when you get in country, you won't see hardly anybody just like sprinting across the street. Most of them will obey like the crosswalks and stuff. Laws, I would say that they have less of a tolerance for obnoxious drunks there than we do here in terms of what they're willing to tolerate before they will like arrest you for being over intoxicated. So that means that, you know, making sure that you stay in control of yourself if you do choose to consume. Those are the only things I can think of regarding differences in laws. You're a lawyer. Do you?
Do not smoke marijuana over there. Do not have marijuana in your luggage. It is not legal and considered to be a serious crime. So if you're in a bar and someone offers you a joint or something like that, where here it's legal, you might want to consider doing something else.
Running away would be a bust.
Yeah,
Run away.
because they will put you in jail for that. Where here it's a ticket. They write you a ticket, that's it. You know, even in states that marijuana is not legal, like Nebraska, if you have less than an ounce, it's a misdemeanor. They just issue a summons and that's it. But here in England, they'll put you in jail, especially if you're from a foreign country.
Yeah, like Vegas, you can walk up and down the streets drinking, whereas here you can't do that. I'm sure there's similar laws.
But
there,
they
right?
allow
So you
containers
can't
on
walk
the
out of a
street.
pub and
Yeah,
drink
you see
in
them drink
Germany,
all
you
the
can
time,
do.
walking up and down the street with a
Yeah.
bottle in their hands.
Okay.
Drinking age is lower too
Mhm.
in England.
Yep. Okay, so this is a good segue. Obviously, there's different cultural norms when it comes to drinking. In London, consuming alcohol is a very normal, very celebrated part of their social culture. What is it's
18.
18, so everybody's above 18, good. Obviously, we want to, if you do choose to consume, be aware that there's different actual levels of alcohol in the individual drinks, and they can feel a little bit stronger overseas, even though we like have this like Superman mentality, like, oh, we're at altitude and we can drink and blah blah blah. The big thing is that yes, that's great, but the actual content of alcohol overseas is stronger. So make sure that you kind of ease yourself into it, because 5 beers here in Colorado Springs may feel very different than 5 beers in London. So make sure if you do choose to consume to ease into it and to kind of feel out your limits in those capacities. And then you should not absolutely at all feel any pressure to consume alcohol due to cultural or social norms, or where people are like, oh, but you know, it's the tradition to drink on this night. You know, if you don't want to consume, don't feel like you have to, and you have the right to say no, and it's not like a cultural thing, it's like not a cultural negative thing for you to say no to alcohol if you don't want to partake in that. No, like I said, know your limits, no signs of over-intoxication, alcohol misuse, and I encourage you to have kind of the Three Musketeers mentality, like all for one and one for all. Like even if somebody is totally over-intoxicated, just like get them back. Even if they're super obnoxiously drunk and you don't want to deal with it, like maybe you, here in Colorado Springs you might just go home, but make sure that everybody who is with you gets back safely. Don't let that one person kind of go off on their own, especially if they're intoxicated, especially if they've been drinking.
And you can call me and I'll come there and get, even if you've been drinking and you think you're getting a little confused, You might get on the, because like I said, it's a strange country, it's a
Yeah,
strange,
no questions asked.
yeah, just call me, I'll be there. I'll come get you and bring you back. Make sure you get on the right train and all that stuff. So just stay where you are, quit drinking. And I'm on my way. And no, there's no recriminations and
No questions asked.
no questions, just, I'll be there, okay?
Yeah. So if you are choosing to consume, make sure you're with other people and that you trust them, and that if somebody in your group or you is over intoxicated, make sure that you get home safe with those people, or you get that person back safely. And like Katie and Rich have established, that they clearly will assist in that process if need be, and not
And
judge.
you don't have to, I don't want you guys to ever feel like, I'm intruding on Katie's good time. Because I'm having my good time later, after our trip. My whole, and Rich is the same way, right? Our whole focus is to take care of you on this trip, so you don't ever have to feel like I'm intruding on Katie's good time.
So, but also don't abuse this when you are overseas. Like, obviously we want you to have a good time, but if this is like a nightly thing where, you know, you're choosing to overconsume, and there has to be additional steps taken to make sure that you get back safe, or like something destructive happens, you know, that's something that we don't want to be a regular occurrence on the trip.
If I'm bailing you out every night, I'm gonna be upset with you.
And ultimately, they have the prerogative to say, okay, you can't participate in our trip anymore, and it has happened where we've actually flown students home from overseas because of things like this. So just make sure you're keeping yourself in check.
Not this group is gonna be fine. I
Yeah.
know everybody.
If you really want a
We're gonna be
crash
fine.
course in the criminal justice system in
I
the
know.
UK.
I wanna see it from the inside.
Don't do a social experiment with that, please.
How many students do you have going?
18.
18.
So I know everybody, so we're good.
Yeah.
But some
So-
groups are like 45 or 50, you may not know everybody.
Yeah. But please don't be tempted to really get to know the criminal justice system from the inside.
Yeah, for the inside out, that's good.
Well, look, that's why we were bringing our own attorney.
No, I can't practice law over there.
Any questions on, any further additions you want to say about alcohol and that kind of stuff?
If you guys go to a bar, just to have some situational awareness, like look around inside the bar, make sure that's a place that you want to be. I mean, you can take a quick look around, and, you know, people are, you know, have metal pierced in their face, and they're wearing chains and leather and things like that. You may want to reconsider.
What if that's my type of people?
If that's your type of that's fine. But I mean, it can happen. The other thing is, always make sure you know where the exits are. And so, for a variety of reasons, but make sure if there's more than one exit that you're aware of that. So if something happens, you can leave. And so those kind of things. Also know where the bar is at. If you decide to take a cab, oh, that's another thing. If you take a cab, make sure it's a cab.
Yes.
There's a lot of people driving around their own cars that aren't Uber or Lyft. They call them gypsy cabs. Do not get into any of those. If somebody pulls up and says, I can give you a ride.
Are they big and yellow?
No, they're car.
No, like, I mean, regular cabs, big and yellow?
They're black.
No, they look like those
cars.
Butler cars.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're very distinctive there.
Yes, you will
And
know.
you will know it's a cab because they don't sell them to regular people.
Okay.
They're cabs. And, but they also have Lyft and Uber. I've used them there this lately. So you can do that as well, but you know how that works. Do it on your phone. They show up, they tell them, you know their name,
Yeah.
it's on their thing there. And so you can do it that way as well. But Uber, Lyft, or a cab, but don't get into a gypsy cab. And they'll look like somebody's car, and they'll say, are you looking for a ride? I'm a cab. You look and it's not a cab, and they're not Uber or Lyft, and you just, no thanks.
Something also to know about bar, there's a difference between like a bar and a club, or like a disco. And a bar is like, you know, a bar where you drink, there may be some music on, it may be a pretty chill environment, but like a club or a disco is like, and like, you know, like that kind of environment, the flashing lights, people intensely dancing. And things are open way later in London than they are here in terms of bars and clubs.
4 o'clock.
So if you're like there and you're like, oh, we'll just stay till bar close, that means the sun may be rising when you are leaving.
We may have to have proof of life a little later.
So know that like things may happen way later in the night. It's not like here we may go out like 9 o'clock at night. People tend to go out like at midnight there. I wouldn't recommend that because you guys have pretty like packed days, and we want you to see more than just the inside of a bar in London. So, to move on to drugs, Amanda talked about this and Rich talked about this, but it's one of the most common reasons for Americans being arrested and imprisoned overseas. We talked about marijuana. It's legal here. It's not legal in any capacity there. And it can result in immediate dismissal from the program and disciplinary action here on UCCS's campus. Also, you could get arrested and really learn, like we said, about the criminal justice system in London from the inside of a London prison. So just stay away from it in any capacity.
And if you go on the State Department website, it tells you all the things about narcotics and how each country treats you if you get caught with narcotics, if you're curious about that. So you can go on the State Department website, look at that country, and then click on that link.
Yeah. So just a quick note about emergencies, and Katie and Rich have or are talking with you about an established set of communication and check-in procedures, and where they're going to be at any point during the day. Important thing to know is that if a major situation does happen in London, the first thing that you need to do is to get yourself to a safe location. And whether that's running somewhere you don't know where it is, but just making sure that you're safe, and as soon as you are safe, checking in with Rich or Katie to make sure that they know where you are and that you are safe. The supplementary step to that is either calling International SOS or calling the UCCS Police Department, which will get everything rolling. Either way, we'll get everything rolling for you in terms of if you need to be evacuated, where your next plan of action is. Something also that's a good practice is go find the American Embassy in London's Facebook page, because in these emergency type situations, the embassy or on Twitter, they'll tweet out or put updates for specific to Americans in those locations. So they'll be like, American citizens are urged to stay out of the Soho district of London for the next 3 days, that kind of stuff. Or this area is not safe, American citizens are urged to not go there. Or they'll give the direct number to the American Embassy to check in. So that they can reach out to family members and things like that.
And it's the U.S. Embassy Facebook page, you say?
Yep. Sweet. Or their Twitter account, if you have Twitter.
And they are downtown. They're right down. I got it on the map here, the circle.
In true emergencies, they'll say, American citizens, please call this number to let us know you're safe. So
And
like,
that's another contact for the parents. They can contact the citizens as well.
yep.
And my wife and I did see a soccer riot while we were there. And we didn't leave though. We were so enthralled by watching everyone that it was right there in Trafalgar Square.
Yeah.
And one soccer team had beat the other, and they were
So much
celebrating,
stuff,
and then
yeah.
it turned into a fight, like 300 cops showed up, and it was really exciting.
On that note,
Free entertainment?
make sure you stay a healthy distance away from that kind of stuff.
We just sat on the steps and watched, but there was a huge, like, we're talking like a couple thousand
Oh
people
my God.
in the square, and like 300 or 400 cops showed up, and we just sat there on the steps and watched the whole thing.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I would say, this was the first time we were there, this was in the 80s, and I would say, time to go. But being younger and all that, we just sat there
Yeah.
and watched.
How many times have you been there?
This will be my 5th.
In cases of assault, theft, mugging, that kind of stuff, it's really important to don't like isolate or blame yourself. We're not going to blame you or tell you that you did something wrong. We just want to make sure that you get the help that you need, whether it's health related, whether it's needing to go to the embassy to get some assistance. Just make sure that you let Rich or Katie know as soon as possible so that they can just be a resource for you to kind of get through that. I mean, these are such vague instructions, but in reality, the main thing is to make sure that you are safe and that you contact Rich or Katie as soon as possible to let them know that you are safe, and that if you do need to be evacuated or something like that, International SOS as well, or UCCS Police, know that there may be a situation where you may need to be in London for an extended, maybe a couple of days longer while, things are figured out, or the airport may be, way harder to get through, or you may not be able to go to certain parts of London because of things happening there. So there's gonna need to be some, flexibility in terms of making sure that, you keep yourself safe and the group is safe.
And that actually happened to Judy, my wife. She got stuck in Heathrow for 2 extra days just because they went on transportation strike. I mean, it wasn't
Yeah.
danger, but
Yeah.
nobody was working. And so she ended up staying in London 2 extra days. I wasn't there that time.
We talked about this, how the laws may differ, and Amanda said this very well, like, if you actually do break the law, then there's very little that the embassies and consulates in UCCS can do to assist you. You are just subject to whatever processing procedures are there. It's not like the Americans like break down the jail cell and be like, we are here to save you. Yeah.
You can't do this.
Yeah, like that's not gonna happen. Like they may be able to refer you to a lawyer, and may be able to kind of work with family back home to kind of give them updates, but that's pretty much the limits. And you can maybe speak to this a little bit more of what they can do if you actually do break the law in London or in the UK.
But they're really similar here. You'll be eligible for bond. I don't expect anybody to be breaking the law here.
Right.
It just,
I don't either.
and it's not, with this group, I
I
just
know.
don't have that work.
I don't either.
I mean, I know
Yeah.
everybody, it's just,
If this should happen to you, we will obviously be reaching towards UCCS on your behalf and also contacting your emergency contacts on your behalf. Just really making notifications for you.
but it just, I don't
I
expect
don't
it.
either.
But
We're a pretty chill group.
you won't be left alone. I'll be down there. May not be, but like I said, it's very similar here. You're eligible for bond, even, and they have this very similar system as far as the courts go and the way they arrest and process people. In fact, we're gonna have the police officer talk to us while we're there,
Yeah.
and it is extremely similar. Well, all our laws are based off, that's why we're going there. This is the root of our laws and our processes.
Going back to our roots.
Yeah, I mean, you go to other countries and they're completely different in their criminal justice system, like Germany. They don't have jury trials. They have 3 justices that are trained from college to make those decisions, but they still have jury trials in England. I mean, we get that process from them, and the idea of a grand jury and being eligible for bond or bail, that all comes from England, not from us. So.
And and also a reason we like to stay away from things like soccer riots is because the chances for you to just get swept up in that kind of stuff is higher. So you may be, in trouble. You may get in trouble for being in the vicinity of that kind of stuff. Or there's a higher likelihood of you getting injured or hurt in some capacity. So that's why we just like to kind of stay a safe distance away from that kind of stuff. As much as it may be enticing to see a soccer riot or to go view a political protest, ultimately you are not a citizen of the UK, and for you to be in that is, first of all, is it appropriate, but it also, the chances of you getting in trouble or getting hurt or injured they just go up exponentially. So.
And that's another thing, not just with London, but a lot of big cities like in the US too, like New York and Chicago, they do have political demonstrations a lot. We don't have them in Colorado Springs, and so it's kind of unusual for that to happen. But there, it's just there's a street called Pall Mall in London, and it goes past Parliament down to Buckingham Palace, and it's not uncommon for whatever reason, a bunch of people with signs and will take up the entire street, and the police are well trained and experienced in that, and they deal with that. They put up barricades and so forth. I've never personally witnessed that, but I've read about them a lot, and so they'll have political demonstrations. They'll go up down Pall Mall, which, like I said, it goes past Parliament and all the way down to Buckingham Palace. But that's common in large cities. You see that in New York, Chicago, and to some extent to Denver. But Colorado Springs is not something that I'm kind of familiar with here. But could be going on there.
So in terms of academics, know that if you are enrolled in credit, this is an academic program, so it will count towards your GPA, so you still are expected to do the work associated with it. Returning home, you may feel a little differently about American culture and everything. When you come home, you won't be gone for that long, but it's still, an adjustment to come back to the US after being gone for a couple days. If you are looking to kind of get involved, you can reach out to me in our office, and we can get you connected with international things here, and Rich and Katie can too. We have an iBuddy student mentor program where we match you with one of our international students, and you kind of show them the ropes of American culture in UCCS in Colorado Springs. It's actually really interesting, and a lot of people have a lot of fun with it. It's a good way for them to make American friends and for you to make international friends. You are on a summer program, so know the timeline. Katie and Rich will establish those academic timelines with you, and it sounds like they already have. And I think that's all that I have. I know that was really long, but we had a really great dialogue to go along with that. Does anybody have any questions, or is anything a little still ambiguous to you in terms of what I can speak to?
So I know that there's the problems with coming back with electronics, when we're flying home. If I bring a laptop as my carry-on, I have to check it on the way back, is that right?
No. That's only from certain countries. From high-risk countries, a lot of Middle Eastern countries, you cannot bring your laptop with you in your carry-on, but from London you'll be fine.
Okay, because I was reading with all the things, the terrorist attacks and everything, that they changed it. That you had to check cameras, you couldn't take anything bigger than your phone on the way
That
home.
is not, I was just in Spain a month ago, and that I was able to take all my
I
electronics.
think London was talking about, or England was talking about doing
I haven't
specific-
heard that.
I'll tell you what, I'll check the State Department website, because it has all the security updates, and it'll say whether or not if there's any changes in that. So let me check that, and I'll send out an email.
I know that that's a thing for Middle Eastern countries, but wasn't aware of that for the UK, so.
But I'll do that. I'll check this evening when I get home. I'll check the State Department website. And they update that stuff all the time.
All right, cool. Well, thank you, Elizabeth,
Mhm.
rockstar. We just have a few more things to power through, guys. I'm gonna pass out one more handbook to you. This is kind of specific to our trip.
Can I get one of those?
Yeah. On the first page, guys, is dates and times to remember.
And this subway map is, like I said, you don't even need to speak English, just look at the colors. And you can just get on the right color train and it'll get you where you need to go.
All right, so dates and times to remember. First, arrival at UCCS for shuttle to DIA. I need to check with, I was talking to Rich, we're gonna try and lean into public safety and see if we can get free parking for you. I guess they're charging for summer parking now. So we're gonna try and see if we can establish free parking for you in association with the shuttle ride. Probably just communicating your license plates to parking then that day. So I'll be doing that immediately and then in touch with you on how the outcome of that is. But tentatively right now, a 7:15 a.m. arrival on July 10th, the morning we leave at UCCS in this parking area.
Is that where
Here
the
is
shuttle's
where the
leaving?
shuttle's leaving from,
Okay.
okay?
So then what time would like a professor be then?
Probably about 7, I would
Mhm.
say, yeah.
Because it's gonna take, the shuttle's not gonna drive as fast as a car. And we wanna get there 3 hours, because it's an international flight, 3 hours before we take off. So-
I saw that our flight itinerary on EF is completely different from what you have. Like on EF, we're not leaving till like closer to noon. We're not coming back till
11:45.
Yeah.
Okay, because their itinerary, like even like coming back, we're not getting back till like closer to 8 instead of 7:30. So which,
I have the EF itinerary here that I printed out, that's the only one that I have seen, and it's the one included in your packet here now. So that has, and I haven't seen any shifts in that.
yeah, because the one on like my EF portal, it's like pushing everything back like half an hour almost.
Okay, yeah, I'll double check that today.
Okay, I
This
just
is
wasn't
the-
sure which one to go
Yeah,
off
this is
of.
the newest version that I have that I've included in your packet here.
Okay,
Okay,
So you're
So-
saying we don't depart at 11:45 on yours?
on mine, yeah, so I don't, I'll look again today, but
okay,
because they weren't releasing flight or any information until 21 days before. So on the 21 day I checked and it's like 30 minutes later.
okay, I'll double check.
Was it the same flight number?
The
Did
big
you
thing is
notice?
the flight number, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, that could be Delta Airlines then making an adjustment.
okay.
Yeah,
So
and
we'll
I'll
look.
double check too, yeah. Okay, so, the other thing is arrival at DIA for those students not taking the shuttle. So if you're not coming with us on the shuttle, then 8:30 a.m. arrival at the Delta gate of DIA. So we're gonna meet you at the gate. We're not gonna meet you at security, anything like that. We're gonna wait for you at the Delta check-in gate, okay? So we'll be looking for you at 8:30 a.m. So just texting me with your, if you're pushing behind, anything happens to you, just be calling me, texting me, this is where I'm at. So I kind of know your estimated time of arrival, things like that, if anything comes up and we're waiting for you, that one of us can push through security and go to the gate and somebody can wait back if you're in trouble, okay? And then a 10:30 tentative arrival back on the campus on the 17th, for those of you who are returning back. That shuttle's gonna pick you up at DIA and bring you back to UCCS, okay? And then I talked about a daily proof of life check-in text that's gonna come. I'm gonna build you again, I'll probably laminate you a little card to carry. I'm not gonna give it to you till we get to London because I want you to actually have it. And you can just put it in your whatever, pocket, purse, whatever, and it'll have my contact, Rich's contact, that SOS contact, and it'll just be something that you'll have immediately for you. But I'll be looking for a 5 o'clock proof of life text from you every day. And then we had talked about if you are going off by yourself or you're having excursions off by yourself, that you just kind of keep us in the know, let us know. But I'll be definitely looking for a 5 o'clock text every day, okay? And then August 4th is the last day of the summer semester, so that's when we have to due date all the work for these classes. So August 4th will be 5 p.m. will be deadline for our classwork. Okay. On the next page is trip itinerary. There's a couple things that I wanted to point out on this. This is the one that's in the ES site. Okay, the standard itinerary. But I've added a few things to it. One, on day 4, you'll see there's a reflection session. Those of you that are participating in the classes, we have 2 reflection sessions where you'll be sitting down and talking to me or Rich about what you've seen so far. One of them is going to happen at dinner time on day 4. And so we'll give you an idea that, you know, that morning probably where we're going to have dinner. And we'll have you just join us for dinner, wherever we are, so we can have a reflection, whatever that wants to look like. Okay, and then the other one is day 7, and that's just during that free Indian dinner. We'll have a reflection session then. So those are mandatory for you for classwork. Third page is contact numbers for everybody. These are communicated cell phone numbers. For all of you, it also has those of you who have designated that you're coming with us on the shuttle and those who are staying in London. So I want you to just take a brief look at that and make sure all information is correct. If I need to make any changes to that, please let me know.
Do you want us to let you know if we're not taking the shuttle back from DIA, like when we return?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll have to prep a document that Rich will give to them. You'll have to forward a document to them for just accountability for that ride home. So yeah, I'll need.
I won't be coming back on the shuttle.
What is your last name?
Rourke, R-O-R-K.
So departure but not arrival, right?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
right.
Sweet. Let's see, and then the last page, I kind of pushed this out to you before, but I wanted to give you just another reference here, and that's just the baggage information that I provided, the phone plans. Guys, be sure and get those phone plans locked down before we go, so your phone's working over there for those proof of life texts. If you have any struggles with that, definitely get with us when we get over there so we will know how you're going to do that. If that doesn't look like your cell phone, we can figure that out. And then there's a reference for those plug-in adapters. And then finally, the tipping breakdown I included on the bottom here. I'll be collecting tips for EF for that guy. The Connor Denon is his name, who's the EF rep that's coming with us. And he'll be collecting those at the end of the trip. And so, but again, those are at your discretion. They're recommended, but at your discretion. So, you know, those amounts are your discretion. But I'll collect them from everybody, just whatever you decide to do, the last day of the trip. And then flight and hotel information. So the one thing I wanted to point out to you here, if you haven't already dug deep into the itinerary, is that the last page of the itinerary lists all of our names. And you'll see that next to your name, there's an itinerary letter for all of those travelers designated as A. That means you're going and coming back with the group. For all of the rest of the letters, that means that you're staying in London and you have a different itinerary for that return flight. So definitely be looking at that and referencing that in the previous pages, what your flight information looks like. You'll see that it also notes our hotel information, including the phone number of that hotel, so you can share that with your family, and the website. And then under that, you'll see that we have our tour director name there, and the police officer who we'll be meeting with is listed there. On the back page is emergency information that I worked with the Global Engagement Office to put together. Those are the numbers that they have on file, and it's just a breakdown of emergency numbers in the London area and addresses for those locations. So the next 2 pages just includes that information. There's a late night pharmacy there, just a breakdown of the numbers and the locations. And then finally on the back, I just found this on the EF site. It's available for you there too, and it's just a packing list, just recommendations just to trigger your memory as you're preparing your bags. And then last page is a color map. This color map has, Erica prepped this for us, so right on for her doing that. It has the route numbers for the train, right, for the
Subways.
tube, yeah. And so you can have this as reference. It has all the locations there, so you just kind of take your time, and I know you'll really need to probably spend some time on it and see the station to really make this, you know, understandable, but this will be a reference for you there, so try and remember to take this packet with you, right? So you have all those numbers of everybody, and you have this map. And then that's it for me. Rich, what do you got? Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing. I'm gonna pass this around, and this is what you prepped.
Yeah.
And so we'll just start making a list there of things that you might want to attend. And it's not set in stone, but it just kind of gives us an idea as we're getting ready. And then that's it. Sorry about that, Rich, go ahead.
Oh, no. And this is the subway map. I've got street maps as well. I'm just gonna make copies and I'll make sure that you get those before we get on the plane. Because like here, if you look on your subway map, you can see Leicester Square or Leichter Square. And that's where the kiosk is if you want to get tickets to Piccadilly, and you'll see that the Piccadilly subway is the very next stop on the same subway line. And if you don't want to take the subway, you can just walk down Piccadilly Road from Leichter Square down to Piccadilly, and you'll see all the theaters that are up. And so you might want to do that, but I have street maps, and then I've circled on the street maps, and I've got them broken down by activities. So like, that's Harrods right there. That whole, it takes up the entire block is the building. And then it's got all the different shops and stuff that are located inside Harrods. It's like a department store, but it's got different things in there.
If we do Harrods, do you have to do high tea with your wife?
No,
Okay,
just if you're interested,
okay,
because it's right there.
great, okay.
Your guys' free time is really your own. I mean, even these, you know, you paid for this trip. So even if you don't attend all the events, I mean, that's totally up to you.
Yeah, I'm just
Really,
putting
yeah.
this out if you want to go as a
Yeah,
group.
we're just willing to help you get
Yeah.
there and, you know, go with you to some of those places if you want to hang out with us. And
But if you're going to take off at night or in the evenings, just let me know where you're going.
yeah, so we can come get you if you need us.
And at the end of Piccadilly is Piccadilly Square. There's a lot of bars and restaurants. That's kind of a, I don't know how to describe it, but it's kind of the place to go
Okay.
in the evenings. And there are a lot of nice places down there. So, and there's a subway that gets off right there. And it's the Piccadilly subway. It says Piccadilly, you can see on the map, the subway map, how to get there. And like I said, there's this huge store there called Virgin Atlantic or Virgin Store. You can Google it, you can see the storefront and stuff like that. But when I was there last year, my son had to make a pilgrimage to this store. And like every CD ever manufactured is there, and LP records and that kind of thing. But they also sell electronic gear and headphones and, I don't know, even clothes. So, you know, if you want to go there or something like that, just let me know.
Yeah.
And what time to expect you back. And if you're going to be late, that's fine too. But
Yeah.
let us know that, hey, we're having a good time, we're not coming back at 10. We're planning maybe later, like 12 or 1, or whatever you choose. I mean, you're all adults, but just keep us informed.
Yeah.
And then when you get back, let me know. I'm here.
Text.
I'm here. We're back at the hotel where everybody's good.
We're gonna have
Is the hotel
content.
on here? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Is the hotel on here?
It's not on that map, no.
So
the
it's
hotel.
further out.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's further out. It's not downtown, but it's not way out. It's not way out. And it's a Best Western hotel. And we looked
Yeah,
at
I
it,
looked at it.
and it looks pretty nice and clean, and it's not in a bad area of town, that kind of thing. You'll see W2, W4, those are different zones in London.
Mhm.
So that'll kind of give you an idea of where you're headed. Like Belgravia is kind of like the upscale part of London. So it's by Buckingham Palace. That's where all the rich people live, and that kind of thing. It's like Manhattan in New York. So
You know, the train takes you just about anywhere you wanna go.
yeah.
Do you have areas that are not recommended?
Right, and we're gonna
Certain
go over
stops
that.
Don't get
Yeah,
on.
like, there's a place like Newcastle you don't wanna go to, probably. There's no touristy thing down there, and, it's kind of like, different parts of New York, you probably don't wanna
Yeah,
go
you
to.
just don't, you
Yeah,
just
so-
keep on going.
Yeah,
You don't even-
Newcastle, well, the train ends in Newcastle.
Oh,
So you get there, you're gonna have to take the same train back, but, I'll have that list for you.
Yeah.
But look at the things where it says W2, W6, those are sections of London. And so like I said, you go to Chelsea or Belgravia, there's a lot of stores there, high-end restaurants, that kind of thing. But you don't want to go to Newcastle or, I forget the other two places, but kind of want to stay out of those areas.
Well, and every day, we're gonna have Connor Dennon, he is our representative from EF who has helped us plan the entire trip. We're also going to have a tour director assigned to our trip. So every morning in the hotel, we're gonna rally for breakfast, right? And and as soon as we get there, they'll go through the itinerary. So every
Breakfast is
day,
included in your trip, so.
yeah,
I
every
suggest
day
you
we'll have
take
an
advantage of that.
opportunity to sit with you. If you say, here's where I want to kind of want to go today, and you know, Rich has been everywhere. We've got these maps, so we can help you kind of do your plans of action. You know, map out your attack on the city every day, and kind of give you some advice every day for what you're planning on doing. You got monster resources for that here before you go.
But you don't have to hitch your wagon to us. If you want to take off
Yeah.
and just go see London on
No
your
doubt.
own, great, do it. I highly recommend it. And
Sure.
we talked about, there's a thing called hop on, hop off bus.
Yeah, I'm totally doing that.
And the better than the bus over the subway is, the subway, you come up at a subway station, you may have to walk several blocks to get to wherever you want to go. And an example would be the British Museum. There's no subway within 4 blocks of that. So you're gonna have to get off the subway and hike over to the British Museum. The bus will drop you right in front. And the hop on, hop off pass, you can buy one or you can buy a 3-day pass or whatever. It's not a tour bus, there's no one up there giving you a lecture as you drive around, but my wife likes it because they're open top buses. You can sit up and you see and it'll make a loop. And it'll go to all the spots, both sides of the river. I mean, it takes probably 2 hours before it goes back to where it's picked you up. But it hits all the spots, you know, Westminster, Alder, Piccadilly, and
yeah, you should do
it just stops and it goes in this big loop downtown.
that.
And you can get off, go see whatever you want to go see, and go back to the same bus stop, and the bus will pull up, and may not be the one you were on. Get on it and go to the next stop. And you get on and off on that pass, and the bus comes like every 15, 20 minutes. So they have, you know, number of buses just making the same loop in a big circle around it.
Yeah, I'll definitely be doing that one day, and I'll put the price list on this final list, or the price of it. And then also, I'm gonna go see Wicked while I'm there, and so I'll let you know when I'm gonna do that, whoever wants to come with me for that.
And I saw that last,
I'll tell you how much it is on here.
and I saw it last summer, Wicked in Piccadilly, and it was really a great production.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was fun to watch.
All right.
But this kind of weather is kind of like what I would expect, like today in Colorado. Yeah. Remember, they're a lot further north than even New York or Maine. But I just read that they had the hottest day since 2003 the other day.
Yeah,
Did you see
I
that?
saw that.
And it got almost to
Pretty-
90.
Yeah, it's been exceptionally warm there
Yeah.
lately.
So,
Actual sunshine.
yeah, so
And everything.
Just pepper everything.
It's like all kinds
You're from Colorado, kind of everything.
Yeah.
yeah, but
Dressing right.
But normally, it's kind of like this. It's overcast, kind of gray, rains a lot. I was there in October one year, and it rained every day. Like I said, I don't know about the hotel we're staying at, but umbrellas are everywhere, and they're cheap, I just
Yeah.
buy one.
No doubt.
So you don't
Yeah,
have to-
poncho, whatever.
Yeah, because you just, but prepare for the weather, it's kind of more like this. I mean, when we were there in June, at the end of June, as a matter of fact, almost July, we were wearing sweaters. My wife and I.
Sweet.
It's hard to say, but I just read that it's really warm. And everything's in Celsius and kilometers. So,
Russia, not here.
yeah, so remember a kilometer's not near as long as a mile. So if someone says it's 3 kilometers away, it's a little bit over a mile long. So it's not very far.
Sweet.
And same with kilos. So if you're checking your bag in there, 50 kilos, I doubt if anyone in this room could pick up 50 kilos because it's 2.3 pounds per kilo. So don't, you know.
Bench press your suitcase.
Yeah,
Is London a good walking city?
yeah, where we're going is, because the old part, or what they call London town on the map, it's pretty walking distance. If you drew a circle of like 3 or 4 miles in a circle, everything's in that circle. Covent Gardens, Piccadilly Square, Buckingham Palace.
But just getting around, walking, they have ample sidewalks and
Oh, yeah.
you're not walking through
Everybody
shady
walks.
city districts or anything.
Yeah, downtown. But you start getting on the subway, you can go to places that you probably don't want to get off on.
So they could just take off and start walking if they decided to do it on their own.
In fact, who was I talking? Oh, George Reed, the dean here. We were talking about being in London. I said, being in a big city, that's one of the safest cities I've ever felt in. You know, it just feels safe, you know, and there's always a lot of police presence. Unlike here, you know, you see cops in cars and stuff like that. Almost all their cops are on foot. And so you see them all over the place.
Very easy to identify.
Yeah, they
Because of their
forms
uniforms
and stuff. They don't wear the bobby hats anymore.
No?
No, they kind of went away from that, but they're easy identifiable, but they're not in vehicles most of the time. Like you'll see them in subway stations all the time. You'll see them walking around, and they're all over the place. And you just don't get that feeling. Like I was a cop for 30 years. I've been a cop and a lawyer, and you know, don't lose your situational awareness. Always keep an eye around you and look for changes that are not normal. But it feels safe. I've been in Rome, and it's not the same feeling.
Yeah.
You know.
That's everybody, I've been talking to a lot of people from Rome lately. I've been, man, good advice. I'm prepping up.
Yeah, she's going to Rome after this.
Well, even Mexico, we were just recently in Mexico and they're driving around with their cars with the lights on them, and the SWAT guys standing in the back of the pickup trucks with the big guns and everything. It's just not like here, where you have cops, but they're not carrying
Yeah,
machine
their
guns.
lights are on,
and-
you're getting pulled over there, their lights are on, and it's like, what's going on? Why are your lights on?
But it just feels like a real, where you're in that area downtown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's very cosmopolitan. People, they dress better.
Yeah.
You know, but even in this
The
country, if you
labels.
go to a city like Dallas or New York, you're going to see everybody
The
dresses
labels.
up.
Yeah,
They
no
don't.
doubt.
They don't dress like us.
No, yeah, we're
Like us.
slobs.
Yeah, we're slobs,
Dress like us slobs.
yeah. So they dress up. They always look nice. But it's a big city. It's very vibrant. It's alive. Very cultural.
See all the fashion.
Yeah, a lot of fashion there. But yeah, and don't think, like I said, we're trying to put these things together in case you want to go in a group with
Yeah.
us. We'll take you there and make sure you get back and forth. But if you want to take off, I feel confident that this group
Yeah.
can do that.
I do too. The big thing for me now is just get on point for getting to DIA, man. Try and just create buffers for you, for yourself, so that you can get to that airport on time, and that we're all, you know, I'll be worried sick about you until I have accountability of everybody at the gate. I'll be worried sick. Don't be afraid to call me. Try and, if you blow a tire or whatever, we'll figure it out, get you to the gate, right?
Well, that's why we're doing it 3 hours instead
Yeah.
of less.
Nice big buffer. It's nice too, when you get, I always do that when I fly. I get through security, I get to my gate, and then I chill at the gate, I got time. getting through all of that is just nerve-wracking.
And then when we get to London, you get off the plane, you have to get your bags and go to customs. We'll all wait until
Yeah.
everybody is together. We'll all
Absolutely.
go to customs together.
How is Heathrow? Is it pretty easy to get through?
Oh yeah, they've got it down to a science, and manpower is not an issue. They'll have lots of. You go up to a counter for those that have never traveled internationally. At first, you show them your passport, and they make sure that you have the proper credentials to get in the country. Then you go to an inspection station where they'll look through your luggage, or may not. They just kind of eyeball you, and I've gone through and they've looked at my luggage, and I've gone through and they just go, yeah, go ahead, and they don't look at my luggage. So I've had it both ways. In Germany, they look through your luggage every time, and they look through your carry-on luggage, and they look through your shaving kit. But Heathrow, everybody has to go through the document check, so you will have to do that first, and then you go to the inspection station, which is right behind there, and then, like I said, they may or may not inspect your bags. It's up to them. But then you just go right down this corridor, and you're out into the regular terminal, and that's where we'll probably meet the tour guide, because they have transportation from Heathrow to our place in London. And it's a fairly long trip. It's 45 minutes. It's a good little distance to London.
Is it right in the middle? Where is Heathrow in the city? Is it near
It's
the
kind of
coast,
north
or is it right in
and
the middle?
northeast of the city. Heathrow is. You go right past Wimbledon State. There's a highway. If you take it, if we're on a surface route, we're not. If we take the train, there's a train from Heathrow to I think Victoria Station, which is downtown London. Then you can take any subway or train from there. But if we go surface route, like with a bus or something, there's a major highway going into London, and you go right past Wimbledon Stadium.
that'd be
and that
Get
kind
some
of
sense.
thing. So, however, I don't know what the transportation situation is from Heathrow. I've done both. I've ridden the train, and I've also had surface transportation.
The
Taxi.
final phone meeting with Connor is on Monday, so I'll text you that, and you can come in and ask him any other questions you want to ask him. He is pretty open though, and I'll just be honest with you, they want very much to maintain the relationship they have with UCCS. They really are being very careful about that, and so, because there was some bad feedback on a trip that went here a couple years ago, and so they're very cautious of that. That's why they're sending Connor to make sure everything is wonderful for you. And so, but we're having phone meetings with him constantly, so we can double check.
It doesn't
I know that
matter.
we're
It just,
meeting-
if you take the train, it's less convenient.
Right, I know we're meeting up with another group though. So Connor's at the airport to intercept us, and then we're meeting up with some other student groups that are coming in. He maintains accountability of ones coming in from all over the country. And so he did communicate that to me, that there will be a pause at Heathrow for him to intercept other student groups also before we set out to hotel. So there could be like a couple hours at that airport when we get on the ground.
Well, we get there, depending on the schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll look
Around 8
again
in
and
the
I can
morning.
always send you what I
No,
see.
yeah, in fact,
Just
I'll
because
lean
it's
heavy
off
into
my
that.
EF account or whatever.
Yeah,
so
I'm gonna lean heavy into that and make sure.
that's why I
sure.
wasn't sure which
Yeah.
one to. I mean, it's only a 30-minute difference, but like especially coming home,
But any change I wanna know
Is-
about,
yeah.
yeah. So I'll double
So,
check all of that.
I'll definitely send that what I'm seeing to you.
Well, and I'll be pushing out emails to you guys on the parking here too, so I'll be in communication here in the next couple of days for that, and we'll just follow up with that too, the itinerary. What other questions? You guys know you can hit us up by text, phone, with any questions that come up between now and then, or if your folks wanna talk to us, anything between now and when we go. This is our final meeting before July's end.
So then, will you send us out an email like with who our roommates are gonna be, so that we can?
I can. I don't know until we get to our hotel
Oh, okay.
whether or not you're going to be double or triple.
Okay.
Some of you could be double, some of you could be triple. It depends on what their day is at the hotel. They do have reserved this number of people for the hotel, but the translation of that,
Okay.
as far as Connor's communicated to me, happens there, so that was just me kind of being proactive.
And you
Okay.
can look up, Katie and I looked at the hotel online, so they have pictures of the rooms.
Right.
You guys can too, it's nice.
Yeah, it
I
looked
was
really
comfortable
nice,
with it
it's
for
in a
you.
nice area of London. So, you know, even, another thing too is if you don't wanna go downtown, you probably can go to the hotel and there's probably restaurants and bars
Just
within
around
walking
there.
distance.
Yeah, that would
too.
be cool.
So,
If you don't want that continental breakfast.
It's free.
but
what
it's
happened?
free,
Yeah.
it's every day.
No doubt, that's me, saves me bucks right on. All right,
Guaranteed one
so,
free meal.
yeah, hit me up, or
And then
hit us
2
both
free
up with
dinners,
anything
or
that comes
not
up.
free, they're included in the price of your
Yeah.
tour, but
You don't have to pay, they're not extra.
I don't know what Indian restaurant we're going to, but the best Indian food in the world is in London, not in India.
Yeah.
That's,
I'm serious, I read that
That's
someplace, but I'm
That's
not,
what they,
I'm,
that's I think a joke within London, or,
Is it?
you know, it's just if you want good food, you eat Indian, because the English food isn't perfect.
oh, it's terrible, but I'm not an Indian food type guy, like I don't go to Indian restaurants here. But I'll tell you, I've gotten addicted to chicken vindaloo, and, which is an Indian dish, it's served with saffron rice, and it's just chicken, but it's great there. And so they put it on our itinerary, so they must really want to impress
It's a
everybody.
big contribution to the British.
Yeah,
for
because they have really good Indian food
Yeah,
there.
that's cool.
So-
All right, rock stars.